hard-fisted, cantankerous and intolerant. His wife was a little more pliable. She was, in effect, an eccentric. She had spasms of generosity, during which periods both the brothers had at times managed to get money out of her. But these were rare occasions. Moreover, the old man kept her so short of cash that she found it difficult to help her nephews even if she desired to. As stated, the discussion between the two brothers occurred in November. It was presumably forgotten by both of them immediately afterwards. And indeed, there is no reason to believe it would ever have recurred, except for certain events which followed the sudden death of Uncle Robert in the February of the following year. In the meantime, the affairs of both Paul and Henri had gone disastrously. Paul had been detected in a dishonest transaction over a paste trinket and had just been released from a period of imprisonment. The knowledge of this had not reached his uncle before his death. Henri's wife had had another baby and had been very ill. He was more in debt than ever. The news of the uncle's death came as a gleam of hope in the darkness of despair. What kind of will had he left? Knowing their uncle, each was convinced that however it was framed, there was likely to be little or nothing for them. However, the old villain might have left them 1,000 or 2, and in any case, if the money was all left to the wife, here was a possible field of plunder. It need hardly be said that they repaired with all haste to the funeral, and even with greater alacrity to the lawyer's reading of the will. The will contained surprises, both encouraging and discouraging. In the first place, the old man left a considerably larger fortune than anyone could have anticipated. In the second place, all the money and securities were carefully tied up and placed under the control of trustees. There were large bequests to religious charities, while the residue was held in trust for his wife. But so far as the brothers were concerned, the surprise came at the end. On her death, this residue was still to be held in trust, but a portion of the interest was to be divided between Henri and Paul, and on their death to go to the church. The old man had recognized a certain call of the blood after all. They both behaved with tact and discretion at the funeral, and were extremely sympathetic and solicitous towards Aunt Rosalie, who was too absorbed with her own trouble to take much notice of them. It was only when it came to the reading of the will that their avidity and interest outraged perhaps the strict canons of good taste. It was Paul who managed to get it clear from the notary what the exact amount would probably be. Making allowances for fluctuations, accidents, and acts of God, on the death of Madame Taillandier, the two brothers would inherit something between 8,000 and 10,000 francs a year each. She was now 82 and very frail. The brothers celebrated the good news with a carouse-up in Montmartre. Naturally, their chief topic of conversation was how long the old bird would keep on her perch. In any case, it could not be many years. With any luck, it might be only a few weeks. The fortune seemed blinding. It would mean comfort and security to the end of their days. The rejoicings were mixed with recriminations against the old man for his stinginess. Why couldn't he have left them a lump sum down now? Why did he want to waste all this good gold on the church? Why all this trustee business? There was little they could do but await developments, except that in the meantime, after a decent interval, they might try and touch the old lady for a bit. They parted, and the next day set about their business in cheerier spirits. For a time they were extremely tactful. They made formal calls on Aunt Rosalie, inquiring after her health, and offering their services in any capacity whatsoever. But at the end of a month, Henri called hurriedly one morning, and after the usual professions of solicitude, asked his aunt if she could possibly lend him 120 francs to pay the doctor who had attended his wife and baby. She lent him 40, grumbling at his foolishness at having children he could not afford to keep. A week later came Paul, with a story about having been robbed by a client. He wanted 100. She lent him 10. When these appeals had been repeated 3 or 4 times,